What's up, Airsofters? Welcome back to the Not So Round Table. George and I are outside the building once again, socially distanced, but ready to answer your pertinent Airsoft questions. Masks off?
Yeah, sure.
So you can understand what the heck we're saying. If you guys are unfamiliar with how the Not So Round Table works, we collect your questions in our Helms of Reasoning from previous episodes. This questions episodes come from last episode's comment section, 155. If you asked a question, we collected those and put them into the helmets. If we don't get to your question, we apologize. We're going to answer as many as we can, but please repeat your question from the last time if it didn't get answered, and we'll make sure that it gets into the Helm of Reasoning for the next episode. I think that covers everything.
That's basically how you enter.
Yeah.
That's how you do this.
That's
All
it.
Trying out some new things today,
Yeah.
camera-wise.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I guess you want to start us off? You want me to?
I mean, I introed it. You mind
Okay, so I guess
leading
I
us
do
in?
tails on that one. All right, really quick, let's get into these questions.
You know, the other day I woke up and had the DuckTales theme song playing in my head. Don't know why.
That's random.
Yeah.
I mean, that's old.
Yeah.
I wish my kids could watch that. This is from Zot, and they said, insert, what is your experience with the durability of GBB pistols? Have you or any of the team noticed a difference in durability between striker fire designs versus hammer fire designs? I am aware that all airsoft guns are airsoft guns, but some friends were having the debate regardless of the real steel counterpart. In your biased experience, have you noticed that stock airsoft guns are affected by having more meat plastic in the stress points on slides? Okay, it's a lot to digest.
Yeah, but
so,
I love that this question is taking it from a purely like function instead of like, oh, is one brand better than those? That's really interesting.
So, in my experience with GBB pistols, I haven't had very many, but I will say, without saying the brands too much, my hammer fire pistols have always performed better reliability-wise than striker fire pistols. However, that said, I have only had one striker fired airsoft pistol, which they do not make anymore, and maybe it was a lemon. So, you know, it is possible, but that one really I had a lot of bad luck with. So it would maybe be unfair to say that that one cannot perform, you know, a striker fire cannot perform.
Sure.
But my hammer fires have worked great.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that a little bit too. I think every time that I've seen a spring system fail on a gas-powered striker-fired pistol, it's always that rotating hammer spring, the internal hammer spring. Something about the design of those and the way they have to move and stretch as a spring in a gas blowback pistol causes them to wear out far more often than a hammer-fired pistol. I don't think I've ever replaced a hammer-fired, like all my high capas and stuff, anything that has a hammer, I've never replaced the spring because it broke. I've replaced it because I needed, you know, a stronger spring, or I was changing gas or whatever. But I don't think I've ever had one purely break. So in terms of reliability, I suppose, you know, hammer-fired has the slight edge for reliability, but to touch on the slide question, I think it's pretty well known that the minute you start getting into, you know, green gas is a minimum and then higher gas pressures, an aluminum slide or a metal slide is obviously going to be more durable.
Yeah, also with just how they fit in holsters and just the stress points being worn out from holsters and stuff like that, a plastic slide will have its drawbacks.
Yeah.
That said, a heavy metal slide also has its drawbacks too.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to lighten it by cutouts and things like that. So, you know, very important to look at when you're looking at pistols is, you know, how much metal is taken out. It really does help, especially in the non-stress points.
Right, and that fine balance between weight versus durability.
Yeah.
All right. Good question, Zot.
Question.
All right, what do we got here? All right, this one is from Darian Reynolds Sellers from 155. Hey, Evike. I mean, I suppose he means this. Hey, Evike, guys. I saw my name at the end, so here's my question. Okay, so he saw his name at the end of the last episode.
Oh, cool.
When we did our honorable mentions. Here's my question for y'all. How do you get more people into Airsoft when fields are far away? My friends and I have built many obstacles and towers for Airsoft, and we would love to have more people play, but can't get more people.
Well, I mean, that just goes back to the old population versus location, and location is everything. You know, there's some fields that do very well solely on their location.
Yeah.
And you know, that's just one of those things. And you know, it's goes back to anything, really, any type of sport or hobby, in my opinion. If you have a theme park out in the middle of nowhere with nothing around, no one's going to go to it.
That's true. That's true.
You know, it doesn't matter if Disneyland is in, you know, somewhere where there's no other hotels or nothing, or, you know, in the middle of some place it takes 3 hours to get to, people probably won't go.
I would say, you know, use kind of the resources that you have available. There may not be a field near you, but if there are any, you know, hobby or outdoors stores, maybe you can print some flyers if you have like get-togethers, you know, kind of like we used to do for, you know, different clubs, or use social media. You know, that's a huge resource. As much flack as it's getting these days, it also is a huge resource to network and get to know people, and so, you know, posting in your, you know, kind of local channels and forums saying like, hey, we've got a group of guys that like to play, and we've got, you know, such and such a field, can go a long way, I think, to bringing in more audience. But
yeah, and also there's nothing wrong with having a 6-on-6 player game at a small field that you do stuff with. You know, you could have a lot of fun. And then, you know, if you guys get bored with that, what you could do is make it a group where all 12 of you go to a bigger field or a bigger event down the line or something like that, and you just kind of make it your own.
That's true.
So it's, you know, it's not one of those things that you can try to grow as much as you can, but you know, there also is population limits, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Virus Man asks, hey Evike, I got a question for you.
Virus Man.
Virus Man.
Okay.
I mean, all right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the players who kind of treat the game like an actual battlefield and eat MREs and stuff? Love the content. Keep up the great work. I will only eat MREs if I have no other choice.
Yeah. And that's, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them, but like, if you are at an event and if you have the ability to make better food, why wouldn't you?
Sure. I wonder though, it's kind of like,
that's more of a gripe on
like,
MREs versus
like
the players who use them.
Yeah. It's kind of like being upset that like somebody else is like wearing a specific camo, as long as it's in the rules. Like, why do you care, right?
Yeah, actually, if in terms of other, like for example, I'm just talking about my own experience in terms of like, would I eat MREs if I had the options? No, I would not.
Yeah.
But if somebody else wants to, I'm not going to hate them for it.
Yeah, like,
no,
dude,
like, you
do
you.
Like, yeah, if you want to sit there and boil your own water in a little pouch and eat stuff, like, go for it, dude.
Yeah, go
like,
for it. I don't care.
And if the rules will allow, if you want to run around on the field like a Jedi swinging lightsabers, like, go for it. But, you know, I'm going to light you up because that's the game.
Yeah, break your really expensive lightsaber.
Yeah.
Not on purpose, but.
Yeah. Did that break?
I don't know.
No.
I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you're referencing.
Remember when JP was running around?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, he's not upset about anything, so
I don't
assume
remember
he's
him
okay
being,
with it.
Dude, he's dressed like Friar Tuck's waving around.
Regardless, I'm a firm
Friar
believer that if somebody isn't directly impacting you in any way, not worry about a player who's doing.
Like unless they're like cheating, not calling hits, poor sportsmanship, you know, ruining the game for other people, like. Who cares?
And sometimes that does happen, and sometimes some people will boast about things they're doing in the game.
That's true.
And interrupt other things in the game. I could reference a few times in the past where it's just like, do you need to make a big deal that you did these things? But you know, that's also Airsoft. People like to make a big deal about things too. And iTruck.
Okay, so I will say this. I'm all for taking like Airsoft seriously for like the immersions, right? Like if that's the brand of Airsoft that you want to do.
There's some Airsoft events that are catered to those specific people.
And
there's
that's
nothing
cool.
wrong with that.
But if that, you know, kind of fosters like an attitude of elitism or exclusionism, or if you're so ham that you're amped up and adrenaline rushed, you know, and then you're being a jerk on the field, you have to remember, at the end of the day, Airsoft, the way most fields play it, is a game.
Yeah.
And you're meant to have fun. So take it as seriously as you want, you know, get into it immersions-wise, but don't forget that you're there to have fun. And that if your game is keeping somebody else from having fun, that's inappropriate.
And I also do think that this, it happens, I would say, with almost every player for the most part, is you eventually have to have a heart-to-heart with yourself and understand if you're taking it too seriously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, everybody does. I would say some people do reach that phase, and just be cognizant of it. You know,
I
there's
had to
nothing
do
wrong
that.
with taking something seriously, but you just got to keep it in check.
Yeah, no, I definitely had to do that. You know, there was a point in time where I was like,
Oh, yeah, me
whoa,
too,
I need
for
to,
sure.
I need to relax. I'm
Yeah,
just here
me
to
too, for
shoot my
sure, for
friends.
sure. There was definitely a point in time where you definitely get to that point.
Especially when it comes down to like, I've got to win. You know,
Yeah,
like, I want to win.
I would say
so
it's almost
badly.
like it's basically when you're at the top of this curve, and then
Yeah.
you just eventually get more chill, where really nothing bothers you.
Who cares?
Except for like
Like,
there's a point then you get after that where you get to this chill point,
Yeah.
where nothing really bothers you unless somebody's doing something really
And that-
stupid.
Honestly, and that's when the game is the most fun.
Yes, and that's when the game is the most fun.
When you stop caring about the game.
Yeah.
All right, next up. Oh,
Except I
this
argue
is,
with people.
okay. I apologize, this one's a long one.
Oh, geez. I'm gonna
Sorry,
go sleep.
I'm gonna
then.
read it quickly. Okay, this one's from Tris Smith. All right, hello, I've been watching the show. Let me see if I can go fast. Hello, I've been watching the show since the last episode came out, not very long, I know, and so far I'm really impressed. You guys have a lot of knowledge about Airsoft, and I think it's great that you give back to the community in this way. My question is, there are a lot of internal parts that make an AEG work, from cylinders, cylinder heads, tappet plates, air nozzles, etc. Is it necessary to understand what all these parts do, or can you get by only knowing the basics like gun maintenance, spring changes, and so on? Thanks, and keep up the good work. Now, I thought this was a really interesting question purely based on the fact that it seems like the guys who can tech in Airsoft kind of look down on the guys who can't.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And not that that's, I mean...
That goes back to that elitism thing we just talked
Right,
about.
and that kind of happens in every hobby, right? The guys who are knowledgeable kind of have like an attitude about, you know, the guys who don't. It's like the guys who drive manual versus the guys who drive automatic. Just kidding, that's terrible. I know you and I drive manuals.
I don't have a manual anymore,
You
but
use-
I can.
but you
drive
can,
one.
yeah.
Yes, I can hop in your car right now and drive off, no problem.
Perfectly fine, yeah. By the way, everybody should learn to drive a stick shift. Even if you never see yourself driving a stick shift, you should learn just in case you're in a situation where you have to drive a stick shift. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, so I think that's an interesting question because I would argue that no, like 90% of the time you don't need an intimate knowledge of the internals of what makes an AEG work.
Nope.
Yes, being able to clean your barrel, do basic maintenance, and change a spring would be helpful.
Or
It's made-
understand what can, like, you know, understand would be like if your motor's making a bad sound,
Right.
or if you're chopping BBs of how to properly clear that and all that kind of
Right.
stuff to avoid breaking your gearbox.
Right, like understanding like a jam, yeah. Or I mean, thankfully, modern quick change spring systems have made changing springs easier, so
Yes.
you even need less intimate knowledge of the internals of the gearbox. However, understanding the internals gives you a much broader, I think, enjoyment of the hobby, because it's not just using a tool, you know, to play something. It opens up a whole new half of the hobby to me.
Yeah.
Knowing and being able to tinker on something. Can you get by with a ready-to-run RC car at your local track? Heck yeah. But then you miss out on building your own RC car and upgrading it and maintaining it and doing all that. That's not your thing. Totally cool. But there's a whole 50% of the hobby that, you know, you open yourself up to, I guess. It's a nice sweater you got there.
Thank you. I picked it up this morning.
Did you?
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are comfortable. We just did a video on these.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
I could always use a hoodie that doesn't have cat fur on it. It's good.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll necessarily ever use like the quick flip functionality.
Probably not.
The nice thing is that I can wear this and never use it.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's, you know, that
It's
it
not
bothers
obvious.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's light enough. It serves as a good hoodie for sure.
But when I need it, there it is.
When you need it,
Yeah.
there it is. All right, let's get into it here.
Couple more questions, guys. We're trying to keep these episodes bite-sized.
Henry Lopkeman. This is actually a very short question.
Oh.
Okay, so it's, can an SMG shorter guns be effective outdoors? Yes and no. I guess it depend on, you know, your internals a little bit.
Yeah.
Your FPS a little bit, what type of BBs you're using, and but if you're using a 10.5 barrel versus someone using what would be a 300 millimeter inner barrel versus someone using a 455,
Yeah.
you're gonna get outgunned every day of the week, outdoors, no problem, even at the same FPS. So just something to keep in mind. because you know the FPS leaving your barrel is different than the FPS that it's going to see downrange,
Right.
based off of that. So your accuracy, your grouping, and your distance is going to be much better with a longer inner-barrel.
I think it's important too to make the distinction between kind of like FPS and range, right? Like, sure, like, you know, in old times of airsoft, you know, there was a correlation between, okay, I've got to maximize my FPS so I can get the distance. But with modern alternatives for hop-up design, R-hops, flat hops, things like that, and really nice polished barrels, you can get...
What's up, FedEx? Joys of filming insert outside.
Don't worry, guys. This will all be over soon, and we can film this inside again.
Yeah,
and then you guys can join us back in the studio, which looks like a tornado blew through it because we don't clean.
we haven't been in the
there.
studio.
Right.
You and I don't think you've been in the studio in a while. I've been in there maybe once every month.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, so with modern hop-ups, hop-up units, buckings, different, you know, hop patches and things, you can get a tremendous amount of distance from a short barrel.
Yes.
Now, with that said, just because you can get a BB a far distance doesn't mean that by the time it gets there, it's going to be felt and called.
Yes.
So that's where the FPS comes into the equation a bit, because a little higher FPS means you're going to have more kinetic energy by the time it gets to that extended range, which makes your opponent more likely to call that hit. Can you get BBs down range with a sub 300 millimeter barrel? Yeah. And in fact, quite easily with just a little bit of investment and a little bit of know-how. Is it going to be as effective as a longer barreled rifle that's got a little bit more FPS?
Probably
no,
not.
Of course not.
But you know, and it's also something to keep in mind too is the air system. I have seen some HPA systems that actually can really hold that FPS down farther, but that just comes down to the efficiency of the system.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, I do have a friend who has a really good Polar Star setup on a small AK that runs very, very well distance-wise. But, you know, I assume you're asking that question because maybe you only have a CQB gun.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, a little bit different of an option for you. But I would always suggest, you know, getting something at least a 363 M4 length, you know, carbine length barrel will definitely help you. If you can get like a mid-length barrel or like a 16-inch barrel, that gives you a little bit more I would say that's your sweet spot.
I will also say, for the money that it would cost you to do like a max model hop up, like an R hop and like a really nice polished barrel, you're almost at SEMA AK money.
Yeah.
So
you want a gun that's cheap that you can shoot outdoors with? Get a SEMA AK.
Yeah,
Sub
and then you've
200
got
bucks.
distance,
that thing
reliability.
stock will just go.
Yeah. Just a thought: if your toss up is
Matt won't
between
buy it, though.
buying another platform and doing upgrades, you know, the more we talk about AKs, the more I'm feeling like I should buy one.
You're not going to.
Which is odd. Well, I've got too many guns. Maybe I'll thin the herd and then. All right, guys.
No, you won't.
What do you think? Last question?
Sure. You won't thin the herd though. Let's be real.
No.
You just maybe won't build anything.
That's true. All right, last question from Aiden McMillan. Here's a question.
Okay.
All right. We know how you feel about akimbo pistols. Think running lasers that have been zeroed in making...
Confused already.
Here's a question. We know how you feel about akimbo pistols. Think running lasers that have been zeroed in make using two pistols at once be more efficient? Also would love to see the show come back to a normal schedule.
This is a normal schedule.
Yeah, monthly.
I mean, like, I know you guys want to see it every week and all that kind of stuff. It just comes down to
not having enough questions.
Not having enough. We like before. I mean, back in the day, it was hard with the getting questions. At first was really easy. There were so many good questions, and getting guests and all that stuff was keeping it fresh. But for us, it's just a little bit harder to get a bunch of questions. And obviously, giving us a month, we can have a month long. We can have a longer episode. We can get more in depth. We can talk more. We can have a little bit better of a setup for you guys. So we just, you know, we're gonna stick with this is our new normal schedule.
Yeah. Aiden, your question is unclear.
I think what he's asking is if you had lasers on the pistols that were zeroed to the pistol, would it make akimbo shooting better?
Sure.
And it's just like, yeah, sure, but to me, it's it crosses the line of when airsoft just kind of gets a little ridiculous at some points. There's nothing wrong with that, to each their own, but I just sometimes just prefer the single BB, single gun, kind of, you know, I don't care what the gun looks like or anything like that, but it just, when I just see these other aspects of what people try to do to kind of gain an advantage in a way, I just don't really see the point. You know, and I think
there has to be a handicap introduced. Like if you want to run akimbo, you've got to rely on purely your skills of aim. Because if you add like the advantage, that becomes...
Well, you're already at an advantage in the sense that you can put twice as many BBs downrange as somebody who doesn't.
Well, I mean, that's like a shotgun.
Yes, but the difference is with a shotgun is boom. But like, like if you think about it, if you're playing a game when most people have, even semi-auto, probably have a decent trigger, could put the 3 BBs just as fast as you could shoot once and pump. So it's not really an advantage.
Unless you're Mason with his AA-12.
Well, I mean, the AA-12 is a little different, obviously.
That's true.
You know, and if somebody wants to run their AA-12 and be, you know, that's fine too. I guess.
That's when you have a head-to-head.
That's when you have a head. You know, like that's when you have an advantage. But I mean. You could run out with a minigun too, theoretically.
Oh yeah, you could.
I mean, there are guns that I guess you can get, you know, build an advantage. I just, honestly,
okay. What about akimbo springers?
If you could rack them back, but like
that's why. Like I'm down for an akimbo springer battle because you've got to put one down to rack the other. Yeah, or do one of those exactly.
For me, I think it's just a moment where maybe the purest shooter in me just gets annoyed with just seeing people use 2 pistols, just because I just don't. It's just a Hollywood thing. It really is. Like, go to the range if you can be safe and try to shoot 2 pistols at the same time.
Dude,
unless you're a master shooter like Jerry Mikulich or something, you're not going to do it very well.
I mean, I witnessed Jason Bourne underhand a revolver and a handgun and take out a whole team of bodyguards and then ride one down the stairwell. I know it can be done. It's real life. Jason Bourne. Aiden, thank you for your question. Hopefully that answered it.
Hopefully I didn't make fun of anybody.
As always,
if I did, whatever. Sorry.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys find us mildly entertaining.
You probably find Matt entertaining. I'm just a jerk.
We entertain ourselves. As always, guys, thank you for joining us on the latest episode of the Not So Round Table. This is episode 156. Stay tuned next month for episode 157. If you have any questions you'd like asked in that episode, go ahead and put them in the comments section below. And we will throw them into the helms of reasoning and get to your questions. Again, apologies if we didn't get to your questions. In fact, I have a couple here that we didn't get to. So some honorable mentions, and if you hear your name, please repeat your question in the comments section below so we can get to it next episode. Andrew Sinabutar, Sinabutar, I think, is the name. Excellent question. I'm not going to read it out loud. And then we've got Marksman Miles 13. Sorry we didn't get to your question. It is an interesting question that I hope we get to, so ask it again. What you got?
Nabadat 4567, thank you for your question. It's a good question. I hope you ask it again. And Nepa Airsoft also asked a question. It's a good question. I really hope you put that comment in the section below, and hopefully we can choose it again and get to it next week or next month. Sorry.
Guys, we rely on your input and your conversation in the comments to keep things going. If there are any questions that we answered that you have a different opinion or you want to add your own thoughts, please also put those in the comments section below. It's not just us in this conversation, it's all of you guys, and I'm sure that there are beginner airsofters out there that are looking for advice or looking for some opinions, and your opinions help and do matter. So thanks for tuning in, and yeah, we'll see you later.
See you.